searched and how he's written his history. And I want to start with, before we get to this up here, paragraph 22. So this is book 1, paragraph 22 on page 7. He writes, with reference to the speeches in this history, some were delivered before the war began, others while it was going on. Some I heard myself, others I got from various quarters. It was, in all cases, difficult to carry them word for word in one's memory. So my habit has been to make the speakers say what was, in my opinion, demanded of them by the various occasions, of course adhering as closely as possible to the general sense of what they really said. So what's he saying here at the first part of this? Abdul?
He might be changing the words a little bit to like favor his opinion.
Okay, might be changing the words a little bit.
But he says he tried to like bring it back to almost exactly what they did say, based on the occasion.
All right. So again, he's going to try to make it say what's basically right given the occasion, but might be changing the words. Might be changing it because of his opinions.
No, based on the occasion. Right?
Based on what?
The occasion.
Based on the occasions. What does that mean? What does that mean?
By the occasion?
Louder, a little louder.
No, I just want to understand your question. Like, to change your view by the occasion is what you said? Or?
To change your...
No, I was wondering what you were saying.
Oh, I was saying, I was repeating what Abdul said. I'm like, well, so what else? What can we build on what just Abdul just said to explain what Thucydides is saying here in paragraph 22? So Abdul's got a big chunk of it. First off, where is Thucydides getting his information about these speeches?
Some from what he heard, so from other people as well.
Okay, so he says, some of them I heard myself, others, right, he says, I got from various quarters. In other words, I got information about these speeches from other people, right? So he sets out his sources, some I heard, some other people told me about, but what's the problem?
Opinions.
It's not so much opinions, that's not so much of a problem as a result. What's the problem, Tim?
He was not trusting his interpretations.
Not so much. It's not that he wasn't trusting his interpretations. What's just right after he says, others I got from various quarters.
Is it because of like the oral tradition? Like they can't like remember it? It's not like written out.
Right. Okay. That's it. What's he say right after that? What's the next clause after from various quarters?
In all cases, difficult to carry.
Carry, yeah.
Right. So it's difficult to carry from one. So even if you heard a speech, right? There's no recordings of it. You're not writing it down at the moment, right? What are you relying on? Your memory. And if someone is telling you about a speech that they heard, what are they relying on? Right, their memory. And he's like, and if you're relying on your memory after, 10, 20 years, right, you're not going to remember it word for word. So he says, okay, so I tried to capture the kind of the gist of this, what was required on the occasion. But really, right, he said, well, I made them say what I think the occasion required. What does that mean? What does that mean?
So he it was kind of a reporter asking them to clarify and repeat themselves. So
No.
Make them say something that you wanted them to say.
Right, but not as a reporter. So that second part was right, making them say what he thought
Influence them.
they should say. Cosmo?
Maybe as an interrogator, like, are you sure you meant this and you said this?
Not so much as an interrogator, because this isn't happening in the moment.
What was the question?
This is what does he mean when he says it was in my opinion, or so my habit has been to make the speaker say what was in my opinion demanded of them. So it's not as an interrogator, He's not behind the scenes telling speakers what to say.
He's the one speaking, right? He's the one speaking, right?
Who's the one speaking?
Thucydides.
How's he the one speaking?
He's speaking through their words, but from what he remembers, right?
Right, and so how is he the one speaking? What's he doing?
He's manipulating kind of what they said, or what?
He is.
If you connect the
Why
dots.
is he manipulating what he said?
Because that's what he thinks is expected of them to say at the moment, right?
Yeah, but it's as we said, there's a kind of a necessity pushing him.
It's almost like what they want to hear at the moment. Because he did so on various occasions, right?
What did we just say earlier? There's a problem. What's the problem?
The memory.
Memory problem. So I remember that they gave this speech. I remember that they talked about this, or someone else told me that they talked about this. But do you know the speech? Right? You don't. No one's going to remember before. Johan.
I think what he's saying is that they're supposed to say what is expected of them,
Who's the there?
like the Athenians or someone in empowerment. Like if it was an Athenian reading it, right, and they were reading this.
Reading what?
What Thucydides.
Right. If they're reading his history, right? Go ahead.
So they kind of have an expectation of what this person is supposed to say. So like if they're talking about the war, and they say, "Oh, I was a coward" or something. That's not something that you expect of a soldier if he was.
You're close. I mean, you're on the right track. Why? It's not just, well, this guy was a soldier, or there's part of that, right? But part of it's just your memory, relying on what you might remember, right? If you're reading this and you were alive, or what you have been told about it, or maybe your assumptions, right? But what Thucydides is saying here is he's coming clean. He's like, look, in my history, we get a bunch of speeches, right? And that these are based on speeches that were given. But the problem is, no one can really remember what was said word for word. So what does Thucydides, the historian, had to do? What has he had to do? Paraphrase, summarize.
He's telling the readers that my account of the story might not be truly accurate. So
Right,
so
all right.
I know that going into
Exactly, right? That he's like, look, no one can remember what this person exactly said. So I basically had to fill in the blanks. I had to fill in the gaps. I had to make them say what what I think they would have said given this situation. Okay? So he's basically coming clean and saying, look, I'm presenting these speeches here, but
I'm assuming this is what they were saying.
yeah, I'm assuming that this is what they would have said.
it reminds me to that word, the Spartan mirage.
Mm-hmm.
Although this is like totally different thing, but we have we think of Sparta based on what we think it might have been like. But
Right.
We don't have the actual facts because it's not recorded.
I mean, true. This is, I guess, to a certain extent. I mean, there's the difference here, right? Is that there were people that heard the speeches that could remember, if not word for word, the general tone of it or what was said. So, like, Thucydides can't completely make it up out of nowhere, right? So it's got to kind of fit what people remember. Okay? So this is the preface to what the second half of this source is looking at, is arguably the most famous speech made in classical Athens. It's called the Funeral Oration by Pericles. So Pericles, important Athenian politician in general, at the end of the first year of the war, Pericles is selected to give a speech eulogizing those who had died over the first year of the war. But as you saw here, he doesn't really spend a lot of time doing that, right? Really, the speech is spent talking about Athens. And more so than any source, I would say, this kind of typifies how maybe Athenians saw themselves or how they wanted to be seen by others. Going back to the Spartan mirage, right? How the Athenians wanted to be seen, right? Now again, Thucydides can't have made this up out of nowhere. It was a very famous speech. Hundreds of people, if not thousands, witnessed it, right? So it has to be kind of in the ballpark. but still, right? I mean, word for word, who knows, right? But at least Thucydides says this is, in essence, what was said. And it might be embellished a little bit or rewritten a little bit because who can remember the exact words, but this is what was discussed in this big public funeral oration. All right, so what makes Athens so great, according to the funeral oration of Pericles? Why is Athens the best? Why is it? Abdul?
It says that Constitution does not copy any of the neighboring states, rather people tend to copy.
All right. They're originators. What does he mean by Constitution, do you think?
Like their set of laws and their way of life.
You're not so much way of life. Their set of laws, but a particular set of laws relating to.
Democracy.
Right. Okay. So a constitution is basically your kind of state apparatus, right? Kind of how your state governs itself. And so he says Athens isn't copying other states, other city-states. Athens is doing its own thing. What is its own thing? Democracy. Who remembers from yesterday? Where does the word democracy come from?
People. with
People.
powers.
People having the power. But again, where does that come from? Chris, did you have an idea? Or do you remember
No,
people
I
with
was
power?
gonna say, okay, good.
Who remembers why this word gets created?
Emo.
So it comes from two words. It comes from demos, that means people, and kratos or kratein, which means like to have power. But they get pushed together to form a new word. And there was a purpose behind that. Why did the Greeks need a new word? Meaning the people having the power. They needed to describe something new.
Weren't they also comparing it to like Persia? Didn't that have to do with it? Because they didn't have people power; it's just one king.
Yeah, except here it's less about describing, comparing it with Persia, coming up with this new word. It's about comparing it with other Greeks. Why did they need a new word to describe the Athenian constitution?
It hasn't like really been done before?
It hasn't been done before, right? That democratia, a system of governance where the people have the power in this Athenian way, is something that is relatively new. And in fact, this is what Pericles is referencing. We're not like all the other Greeks, where we have our oligarchy, right? That's kind of the contrasting term. We are doing something different. We're not copying other people, they are copying us, right? They are trying to be more like the Athenians, oftentimes because the Athenian navy is forcing them to. But we'll talk more about that next week. All right, what else makes Athens so great? Besides being an original. What else makes Athens great? Timo.
Their citizens are
Okay.
virtuous, and they don't depend so much on the set of laws, and they kind of follow the expected traditions and
Okay.
societal norms, and I guess those norms kind of come from the teachings of their, betters, the
Okay.
Muslims or whoever,
Okay.
and because of that makes them more civilized.